What happened with Woody today, huh? Well, apparently Woody Harrelson has quit smoking weed, everyone, and everyone wants you to know about it. Everyone from CNN to USA Today to local news to the weed writers, all the way back to the fake news, all the way back to the speculators and the crusaders and the. But what we find in a few of these displays of I don't know what. I mean, it's almost like to me, Woody Harrelson was a pretty much a weed activist, but they got this sounding like Chong or Cheech quit smoking weed or something. Like he was a weed smoker, but I don't think that's what it was. I don't think it was like Snoop Dogg level notoriety or whatever. I mean, so he's known to be in a couple movies where he smokes weed. He narrated a documentary about weed, mostly about reefer madness. He, he's been on the record talking about marijuana legalization, and from all the things I've ever heard him say, the stuff that I read him talking about in the interview where he said that he quit smoking weed after 30 years in Vulture magazine didn't sound like the Woody Harrelson I'm used to hearing, especially when it comes to talking about weed. So that was a little weird. And if you looked at the story, I don't know if they really get into it here. Yeah, there's Woody Harrelson, that guy. Um, and down in the corner there's the grass movie box cover or whatever, the artwork. A really good documentary, all about reefer madness. It's basically like the history of really quick, brief history of marijuana, and then the history of reefer madness from there on out. So now, what I'm seeing time and time again is they're using this. I don't know who they are, but they're using this to craft this thing about people that smoke weed for a long time, long term marijuana smoking. Uh, Whether it will be the effects of it being something that is not good for your brain. That's always what the scare tactic is with long term use of marijuana. Bad for your brain. Kills brain cells was the old school deal that they used to use, but it came out that the monkey experiment where brain cells were getting killed, basically they were just suffocating monkeys. So they don't really run with that full on hysteria type stuff anymore. So they use this more subtle reefer madness that I've been talking about in my videos that I've been making in 2017, especially because it seems like we've been hit with this time and time again. Earlier in the year, we seen the resurgence of the cannabis induced nausea stories floating around talking about how if you smoke marijuana on a regular basis and quote unquote smoke too much marijuana, you're going to have severe nausea problems that are only solvable by jumping in a hot bathtub or some crazy shit. Um, and then we have your typical other scare tactics about brain development and younger kids. Their brains are still developing, so smoking weed's going to definitely damage their brains. And then you have the classic today's pot is not your dad's pot. This stuff is like rocket fuel or something. I mean, they're getting more technical with the reefer madness and getting more detailed with it, getting more scientific, if you want to call it that. Meanwhile, they ignore the real scientists and whatnot who do real reports and show real results from real marijuana situations, we'll call them. So, meanwhile, they do stuff like this story, which is totally insane. You're about to see what happens to your body after a stoner quits smoking weed. So they left Woody Harrelson off at the door here, and they took this as an excuse to roll out with reefer madness about your long term marijuana use. So reefer or Woody used marijuana for about 30 years, he says, quote, let's just read it. As an expert about the effects of marijuana withdrawal and the conversation, or ask an expert about the effects of marijuana withdrawal, and the conversation quickly turns to the cognitive. After all, marijuana is a hallucinogenic drug that alters the brain, how a person thinks and perceives the world, research shows. Experts then can identify with actor Woody Harrelson and his decision to quit marijuana a year ago because it kept him from, quote, being emotionally available. So, what we're seeing here is that they're talking about experts in the field of marijuana withdrawal. Who would know about marijuana withdrawal? Well, you're going to find out. Doctors that work with people that are in recovery programs or rehabs, rehabilitation places. And there's only one way that people usually get to those places because of marijuana, and that's because they stood before a judge and the judge gave them an ultimatum. Either you go to rehab or you go to jail. And a lot of the times these are teenage kids in high school or even younger. And these are what their statistics become. The statistics become we have a big problem with the teenage marijuana addiction in America because all these 16, 15, 17-year-old kids and keep showing up in rehab and they're showing up addicted to marijuana, I tell you. And the first thing they do is they tell them that they're gonna treat them for their marijuana addiction. And from there, they basically the person that's in this rehab facility just becomes a case study. And I don't know what their little books for how they run a case study look like, but basically, they try the same counseling and alternative drug therapy in some cases to try to help these people, with their marijuana withdrawals. Now, I have a problem with all this because, first of all, marijuana withdrawals are not a thing, man. And if they are, it's a super minor thing. Now, did you hear Woody Harrelson say anything about how hard it was for him to quit marijuana a year ago? Or that every day he has to fight the urge and he did say that he's seen a marijuana joint and he thought about it, but then he was like, well, I've been quit for this long. So, he did kind of speak to the addiction a little bit when he said that, but it also said a lot more for the fact that marijuana is not that addictive. Because if it was anything else, there would have been a paragraph about him resisting. It would have been a much bigger deal to somebody resisting something like a cigarette or heroin, something that's really, really addictive. So this person is obviously they're leading us into this, and right off the bat they identify marijuana as a hallucinogenic drug that alters the brain, how a person thinks and perceives the world. I don't argue with that. I say it all the time, like maybe that's why the church don't like it. Maybe that's why the government don't like it because, when you smoke that, it opens your mind up a little bit and you start to question things a little bit. So maybe they're right there to a certain degree, but when you say hallucinogenic, that is a little bit over the top. I've never understood the designation for marijuana to be designated as a hallucinogenic after actually doing hallucinogenics. So I don't really agree with that. Now, if you do want to call it a hallucinogenic because of the first few times that you consume marijuana and you get that really intense effect, maybe, you can say that. So hallucinogenic, I don't know. If you're going to call it a hallucinogenic, it did the one-time altering of your worldview or whatever, and that's what everybody's so worried about. Oh no, the kid's gonna smoke a joint and lose his innocence, their innocence. because they see through your religion and they see through your over the top authoritarian bullshit. Maybe a little bit. Um, but other than that, no, quit talking about this hallucinogenic thing like it's something major. Like, you know, after you quit, you're gonna have to get used to the world the way it really is, man. It ain't like this fluffy, cloudy thing that you got. You know what that really is? That's when you got someone doped out on tranquilizers for years on end. Those are the people that have to readjust to the real world, man. Or somebody that's been couched on, opioids for year after year after year. When you take the opioids away from that person, that's somebody whose world comes crashing down on them because it's not the same thing that it was before you took that pill bottle away. So you got it all wrong here again with the reefer madness. USA Today, par for the course for them. All right, so here's the article again. It's true, real feelings are among the things that return to a person coming off of years of marijuana use. But so does anxiety and the realization of the drug's consequences. Give me a break. Real feelings are among the things that return to a person coming off of years of marijuana use. You're acting like somebody that uses marijuana is just this lump of clay that has no emotion and no empathy or nothing. Just don't give a shit about anything. I mean, what are you describing? I don't know where they get this from. This is absolutely nothing to do with marijuana. Whatever this is here, they're talking about something else that I don't know anything about. So here's your experts. You got your Dr. Stuart Gitlow, a professor at the University of Florida and a past president of the American Society of Addiction Medicine. Excuse me, sir, if I don't respect your title, but I think you're basically a clown. A University of Florida president of the American Society of Addiction Medicine? That sounds like a joke. There's no addiction medicine. There's things that are addictive. There's persons that have addictive personalities. And that's it. There's no medicine that you can take to get somebody away from addiction. So what are you talking about? Addiction medicine. It doesn't even make sense. So that's one of your experts that knows all about this marijuana withdrawal. And I think he's basically full of shit. Dr. Stuart Gitlow, you're full of shit. I'll debate you anytime you want with your bullshit about long-term marijuana use. I've been using marijuana for 35 years. So I started smoking weed before Woody Harrelson started smoking weed. How about that? If he says he's only been smoking for 30 years, I got him beat by a couple. And I have all kinds of emotions. And they're running really hard right now because of this bullshit you're pushing. So you might want to get a hold of me if you disagree with me. I'm going to try to reach out to you because I really don't like what you're doing here. And I don't know if Woody Harrelson likes what you're doing here either. All right, so then you have another person, Karen Treatment Center Medical Director, Dr. Joseph Garbely. Now, once again, you have a treatment center, and he's the medical director. So when you go to this treatment place to get clean of drugs, I presume, and you're one of those people, the guy that got caught with some weed, and the judge was like, you're either going to go to Florida. You're either going to go to Florida or you're going to go to jail. No, you're either going to go to rehab or you're going to go to jail. I think I'd rather go to rehab or jail than Florida, to be honest. But so when he's saying you're going to either go to rehab or jail, you go to rehab and then you meet this guy. And these guys are the experts, and their titles say something about medicine. Like this guy is the medical director. So apparently, when you need to get clean from marijuana, there's medicine involved. I'd kind of want to know a little more about this. What do they give them? Xanaxes and Vicodins and stuff? I mean, how do you get somebody clean that's an addict by giving them medicine. It doesn't make any sense whatsoever at all, unless you're talking about trying to get somebody off of opioids with Suboxone. Then that's a whole nother ballgame. Then you guys might be legitimately talking about something that I could get behind and I can listen to you with a seriousness. But when you're talking about marijuana, there's no addiction medicine and there's no medical director needed. Where someone wants to quit smoking marijuana, they just stop. It's not that big of a deal. I've had to do it a few times in my life for more than a month, one time a whole year. It's not that big of a deal, man. It's not that big of a deal at all. In fact, it was way harder for me to quit smoking cigarettes, big time. That was the most ridiculously hard thing to do. But marijuana, I never even thought about it. It wasn't a thing. But according to these guys, the person that quits smoking marijuana, they're going to have these withdrawal symptoms. They miss it and crave it at first. Well, of course. If you yank it from somebody, they're going to miss it. Even if they decide to quit in their own volition, well, of course they're going to miss it. You know, there's different ways that you form habits that make it so you're going to miss it. All right. But here he's talking about Get Low claims one of the issues people experience when they stop using marijuana is the act of stopping using marijuana. Quote, there's a familiarity with the experience that will now be missed, he said. He described it as being married to someone you don't like, then missing them once you divorce them. Now, see, I don't know how he describes it like that because it doesn't make any sense. Like he's saying that he's making it feel like the person that's smoking marijuana is doing it with guilt every time they do it, and they know they're doing something wrong and bad. I don't know what he's talking about. So this guy is really off base. He's really out there. But his job depends on marijuana being perpetually a bad thing and being, you know, the thing that you can go see him over if you get caught doing it. They get anxious. With the cravings come anxiety. Now, with marijuana, that's very minor. I mean, quitting smoking marijuana, I'm sure the anxiety is basically just life's day-to-day bullshit, probably is a little bit more bullshitty. But other than that, it's not that big of a deal. You don't start freaking out. Upon quitting, a person could be unhappy, irritable, anxious, and jittery, said Gitlow. Yeah, I'm like that because I quit smoking cigarettes. I wasn't really that much like that from quitting smoking marijuana the times that I had to. But one time I was in jail, so of course I was all those things because you're in jail. They feel feelings again. Now this is not any. They're talking about something else. Like if you quit drinking alcohol or whatever you are, like if you're in a pill like cloud for years and you come out of that, those kind of things, yeah. Marijuana, I don't see it. It didn't happen with me, and I don't understand what they're talking about here, but I'll give them a chance. After the anxiety comes and the true emotions, which often aren't good ones. Rather, they tend to revolve around the consequences that cause them to quit. Dysfunctional relationships, performance at school or work, the time wasted doing the drug, and the realization they aren't cognitively what they used to be. All right, so let's go down the list one by one because this is straight up bullshit. The dysfunctional relationships. He's saying that the reason that they had to quit marijuana was because of all these things, when really it was because the judge gave them the ultimatum: jail or this dickhead down the hall with the rehab, the guy with the clipboard taking notes. So, you know, he's talking to these guys that got caught with the weed. And all these things are just like part of the repertoire because these guys they're troubled people, you know. Obviously, you can smoke weed and never get caught through your whole life. It's almost like getting caught smoking weed is the one thing that they were like, okay, well, we'll pin him with the weed, you know. Like he was also drinking and driving and he had a loaded gun in his glove box, but we'll just get him with the weed, send him off to rehab. I mean, we know how this works, man. Most people don't get busted for weed. They don't. You're dealing with all these marijuana addicts. I would like to see your caseload. I'd like to see, I know you can't share patient and doctor information, but you can at least show me like Give me an idea of the demographics and the where you even come up with these marijuana addicts, because there's no such thing, man. There's no such thing as people seeking rehab because they're addicted to marijuana. Now, if they have to because of somebody who made them, then yeah, I believe that there's a lot of people going there for that reason. On somebody's own volition and on their own dollar, are they going in there seeing, going to rehab because of marijuana? I don't believe it, dude. So I don't know where you're getting your data from. But yeah, so all these people had these problems. They had bad performance at school or work. They had dysfunctional relationships. Time was wasted doing the drug, and the realizations that they ain't cognitively what they used to be. Could be that there's somebody that just fell into a hole, and marijuana was one of the things that was in that hole with them. But to just say that marijuana has been linked to a change in IQ, that's not true. That is not backed up by any scientific studies at all. So that's just part of this reefer madness that this guy is, that the writing here has relied on the whole way through this article so far. Just assuming that everybody out there has the built-in reefer madness knowledge of, marijuana has been linked to change in IQ, makes you basically a lump of clay, makes you basically like brain dead. I don't know. Quote, the desire to numb bad feelings come at the cost of numbing good feelings, Garbly said. Now he's saying that basically somebody smokes marijuana, they get addicted, they start smoking marijuana because they're trying to escape their shitty problems and their bad life, their bad feelings that they're having because of all the things that they suck at in life. And they just got to smoke the weed, because that makes them feel good and it numbs it. But it also numbs the good feelings, which doesn't make a damn bit of sense. So, man, Garbly, you're all garbled up, man. Nobody smokes weed to escape their problems. That's alcohol. I think you're thinking of alcohol, and I think you're thinking when people go to the doctor and the doctor prescribes them stuff, you're thinking about psych meds and benzodiazepines and antidepressants and stuff. So once again, you're not talking about marijuana, man. Not at all. So and then he says it's going to be uncomfortable for months, even a year. And like I said, I've quit for months, and I had to quit for a whole year. I was in the army for a year. Didn't have any problem with it. Never even thought about it. Wasn't a big deal at all. I'm not a uncomfortable feeling person, and I wasn't then, and I certainly, don't think I was any less comfortable that I didn't smoke weed or had anything like they're saying. Like here he says, the withdrawal of any drug, Garbly said, will produce the opposite feelings of what the drug produced. That might be true. It might not be. Marijuana doesn't produce that much of an effect, especially on somebody like me that's been doing it for a long time. So this is where I, again, have to kind of disagree with this whole like premise of marijuana being a hallucinogenic. So here he goes. The consistent hallucinating of your brain, Gitlow said, damages a person's perception. Now I agree. That would be true if you were constantly hallucinating and you were using actual hallucinogenics. But marijuana, not the case. And he goes on, done day after day, a person finds himself acclimated. Like you get used to just being stoned as fuck and just, everything's just melting in front of your eyes. So when the person stops using, it's going to cause them to feel uncomfortable. So if they do even if they do objectively feel better. So that's what I said earlier when he said this crap. You feel better because you stop smoking weed and you're coming out of the cloud and stuff, but you feel uncomfortable because you don't feel better. You don't feel as used to the world. I don't know what he's talking about, but it's garbage. Quote, if I've been damaging your perception and you have acclimated yourself to that and now I take it away, you're going to feel worse. Of course. But what are you talking about? if you've been damaging someone's perception. You're damaging people's perception all the time by saying all this crap about marijuana that's just simply not true or applies to something else. Get Low said it could be months and up to a year before a person gets used to their new reality. New reality. All right, man. The new reality is it's the same reality as it was before. You just don't have weed, so it sucks a little bit harder. Come on, man. What are you talking about? It's gonna suck more because you don't get to wind down at the end of a hard day at work with a joint, or you don't get to watch your favorite show stoned. I mean, what are you even talking about? You don't get to sit back and listen to some jams with the extra stereo effect of being high. What is your problem with people getting high anyway, dude? Like, you act like when someone gets high, they're sitting there spacing out on some kind of a hallucination that, like, the wall just rips open and you got this cool universe that just comes in and circles your head with crazy shit. Dude, that's just simply not that hallucinogenic. Why don't you, doctor, go ahead and try some marijuana before you act like you know what the hell you're talking about? This is such stupid, like, assumptions about what a hallucinogenic is doing to somebody. He stressed it will take many years to know the pulmonary effects of today's marijuana. However, data supports its ability to change how a person thinks. It's not LSD, bro. It's not gonna like give you that spiritually awakening situation where you're just like, oh, I seen God, man, or I seen God was bullshit, or I seen, whatever it is, whatever your epiphany is that you have on a major hallucinogenic trip. You don't really get that from weed. Yeah, like I say over and over again, you see through some bullshit, but it's not really like, whoa, dude, like super crazy shit like that. And then he goes on to say that there's no safe level of use. Not at all. No safe level. Even one little touch of a marijuana cigarette, it's dangerous. He said, quote, "We look at it as a much more dangerous and insidious drug," unquote. Then what? What are you comparing it to? A much more dangerous and insidious drug. It's, first of all, it's not even dangerous at all. You can't harm yourself with it. I mean, you could probably compress a ton of marijuana into a small little brick that weighs a ton. It'd still be pretty big. And then drop that on somebody and crush them. That would kill them. That would be dangerous. Or, maybe there's some dangers in people that are inexperienced, unprofessional, or just amateur hour, like trying to make butane wax or something, and they blow up their little Pyrex dish. That's kind of dangerous, but that isn't meth lab blowing up dangerous. But anyway, what are you talking about with this dangerous shit? Insidious. What in the hell are you talking about with insidious? Insidious is 151 Bacardi. That shit's literally insidious, and it's also incidentally flammable. What are you talking about, insidious? There's no such thing as a hallucinogenic on Earth that's insidious, unless maybe, PCP maybe. I mean, I'm guessing what you mean by insidious is someone's going to smoke it and then they're going to straight up do something evil. Like, I don't know where you're going with insidious, but dangerous, it's a much more dangerous and insidious. I think he's still talking about today's marijuana, because remember, up at the thing above, he said it'll take many years to know what the effects of today's marijuana is. But since it's so strong, I think he's talking about it's super strong. So, there's no safe level of use. It's much more dangerous and insidious drug than it was before. Well, it isn't dangerous, and it's never been dangerous. It's never insidious. You're talking about drugs, like hardcore drugs, alcohol. Aspirin is more dangerous than marijuana. That's a fact. Look it up. Ibuprofen's more dangerous than marijuana. Tylenol, more dangerous than marijuana. Prescription drugs, all of them, more dangerous than marijuana. You can't name a drug that marijuana is more dangerous than. You can't name one drug that marijuana poses more physical danger to. Now, when you're talking about mental danger, like mind warping danger, there's none of that going on with marijuana. So, These guys don't use marijuana, in case you haven't figured that out yet. They're they're not even thinking about it. They would never even consider it. They're probably not even experienced at talking to people that are these quote unquote marijuana addicts going through quote unquote marijuana withdrawal because they're full of shit. They're not talking about anything except for anecdotal bullshit. They have zero studies to back up anything they're saying. And again, I have no use for this Dr. Gitlow guy. If you want to have an honest debate or an honest conversation, let's do it. But this crap where you just sling the spaghetti at the wall and laugh at it as it sticks, we're just sick of it. The whole world is sick of you guys lobbing this garbage that you call science out at marijuana because it's all bullshit. Marijuana is safer than most food. I mean, come on. I guarantee you marijuana is safer than McDonald's. Anything on the menu. So if you want to be, making laws because you're looking out for the safety of people out there, why don't you ban McDonald's instead of marijuana or whatever? So anyway, it's sad that they used Woody Harrelson, who probably in this interview with Vulture magazine, where Woody was found to have said, I don't want to make this interview all about that. And I think after that, the Vulture people kind of stopped picking his bones about it. But ridiculously enough, whatever he said about it, it was probably just kind of like in passing. It just doesn't sound like the Woody Harrelson that I remember, the guy that narrated this movie here, Grass. And if you didn't get a chance to check that out, look it up, find it, watch it. It's it's basically the history of reefer madness and the government's war against this plant that basically is the most medicinal plant known to man. You can't show me an argument that would work for any other plant being more medicinal. And I'm sorry I talked about this for a long time. It really was just about that USA Today article and whatnot. Woody Harrelson is alive and well. He quit smoking weed apparently, which is the biggest deal in the world, apparently. Everybody had to get a piece of that. And welcome to the new Just Say No campaign, where I think Jeff Sessions just like went around and took all his corrupt money that the pharmaceutical people in the police gave him, and he just started paying all these reporters to dish out this reefer madness every week. Because it seems like every week we get another heavy dose of reefer madness. So that was this week's. Hopefully there won't be any more. And best of luck to you, Woody. Peace.